Hello, and welcome back to Inside Flair, which stands for Flourish in Life Through Art and Resources for Endometriosis. I'm Priscilla, your host and founder, and today we're going to talk about my story. So, I am going to share with you how I was diagnosed with endometriosis and my journey. So, let's start back at the very beginning of when Priscilla first got her period. No, we don't have to go all the way back there. I will say that I was young. I think I was like 11. And I do remember kind of a similar theme that, other people have been told, which is that the pain was normal, that the pain just comes with cramps. And they were so bad. I remember in middle school, I missed a lot of school and I was embarrassed because I couldn't do it. I couldn't push through some things to an extent, and people and teachers, why aren't you coming? And oh my gosh, I mean, thank God for my mom, she wasn't sure what was going on. It ended up being more leaning toward a lot of GI issues that I had that she was supporting me through. But as far as when it came to the painful periods, I mean, I was just doing every and anything I could to survive and make it through each day. No idea, just thought periods sucked. And so then on to that story about all the GI stuff. In 2006, we moved to Illinois because my dad had a job change and I was the new kid all over again. It was really sad to say goodbye to all my friends after middle school, moving into high school, right? Ninth grade, everyone kind of, you start over, you build your new groups and whatnot. And here I am, just outside Chicago, a little nobody sitting by myself in the lunch cafeteria. I remember literally just that fall when school just started, and I go to stand up and like bring my tray back, right? I didn't even know where to bring it to. But I couldn't even stand all the way up. I was in so much excruciating pain. I remember a teacher on duty came over, helped me to the nurse's office, and the nurse called home, and my mom came in. They're like, she has a fever. She needs to like leave immediately. I don't know how they ended up telling her like you need to bring her uh, to the ER. I don't even remember. I just remember my mom new, right? We're new to the area, bringing me to the nearest medical building she could find, which happened to be like a bariatric center. I remember when I came in, they wrapped me around like four times in one of the gowns, and I was just like so out of it and in so much pain. Like I said, I remember the fever, and eventually took an ambulance to a hospital from there. What ended up happening was we were told that I had diverticulitis. There was a bowel perforation, I had internal bleeding. They had to do an emergency operation. They cut right down the middle, opened me up. My mom said she was so scared. She said it took like 7 hours, 7 or 8 hours. And so yes, I had a bowel resection, and then they took out my appendix while they were in there. Uh, just they said so I would never have to be operated on again. Ha ha. And I went all my young adult and all the way up until this January believing and accepting that that's what I had, diverticulitis. Made sense. I had IBS, I had all those issues. Um, but now looking back, I'm kind of putting together some pieces and thinking, maybe it was something else. Maybe there was a general surgeon on that day who had no knowledge of endometriosis or it affecting the bowel or anything like that. But thank you, because they saved my life. And we eventually ended up moving back to upstate New York, where I'm from and live. And I went about school, and upon graduating high school, I remember feeling just so much pain. Like they were getting worse, the cramps and the bowel issues. And then, so I go to college, kind of struggling with the same thing. My husband now, we were dating at the time. I follow him down to Long Island where he was going to school. So we're living on Long Island and we've decided that we're ready to start trying to have kids. And to do that, I came off birth control, and that is when the symptoms, oh my gosh, this is in 2019, I believe, 2020. So, so painful, excruciating. And then that is where all the real urinary symptoms were just hitting to the point where I felt like I could not even function normally. Um, During a regular workday at the school, I would have to go to the bathroom multiple times, asking other teachers to cover my class. Um, all the terrible, like, I was afraid of drinking water. Like, if I knew I had to do something, I would purposefully hold back on liquids so that I didn't have to be interrupted by constantly, running with that urgency feeling having to go and then not being able to empty. The bowel problems have been there the whole time, but the urinary, this is where it was like really, just really painful. So the fall of 2020 is where I um like begged and begged my OB at the time for help. I'm just like, this is like, I just can't take this. And they were treating me for a UTI even though there was no growth. And I remember that going on for 2 weeks until the point again where I was just begging, and he seemed so frustrated. Not a bad guy, honestly, but he just seemed so like helpless. I'll never forget, he like went up to the receptionist and was like, just just get her in with a euro or whatnot. So he puts me in contact with a urologist who does some scans, and they see there is a mass. They're calling it a mass because it is solid and not fluid filled. And what they discovered later is that my uterus had adhered to my bladder. And the mass, which was like about the size of a strawberry, a large strawberry, had invaded the wall of my bladder. Now, they were not thinking of endometriosis first. No. What were they going for first? Basically, cancer, or neuroendocrine tumor as well. So I remember doing a lot of my scans at a cancer center, which was really traumatizing in my young mid 20s. So after weeks of multiple scans, different things, like I said, they were searching for a neuroendocrine tumor. So I remember like there's specific different scans for that. Like one where I had to lay down with my hands up for like over 2 hours. Um, and so he ends up doing a TURBT to take um, the specimen, right, biopsy, and diagnose with interstitial cystitis. I'm like, what? Yeah, you basically have irritable bladder. I'm like, what? And he kind of handed me off also like, I just don't know. So I do my own homework. I'm like looking up everything everywhere. I find a UroGYN, which I didn't even know existed. She was so kind. She did her own cystoscopy in that appointment, or in when I had an appointment with her, and she's like, I have no idea what this is. I have never seen anything like it, and I don't want to touch it. So I am going to suggest you see this other specialist. And it was a big New York City endometriosis specialist surgeon. And I was like, okay, something called endometriosis. Mind you, I have no idea what this is. I have never heard of it leading up to it, and just really scared because at this point I'm gone months and we still don't know what this is. So it was all of 2020. And then a lot of all these major things were happening in the fall. I remember waiting. I think I got my first appointment in December with the specialist. And I remember going in and him saying, well, do you want to keep trying to get pregnant, or we can just, take this out? And I'm like, really? Yeah, it's like super simple. It's how we diagnose it. This is what I think this is. I'm like, okay. So we scheduled a surgery. It was February. February is the month for me and my endo. And so yeah, they went in, and they found it. They took it out. The amazing, at this point, I had to find another urologist. She was so incredible. She ended up doing most of the work, I am told. um, fixed up my bladder wall, separated it. Um, the OB said he didn't have to do much, apparently. It wasn't anywhere else, which I'm told later now, like, was not the case. And he was like, okay, you should be good to go. And boom, we did. We got pregnant with Lily. And it was amazing. It was amazing, I will say. And that, you hear people say, oh, just get pregnant. Well, pregnancy, it does. That's what it does. It puts the disease in remission and it quiets it. And it was so nice. I mean, even before I got pregnant, I just was relieved of so much pain, and I could go to the bathroom normally. I mean, it it was nice. Um, so then exactly the next, so I had Lily in January 2022. So January 2023, I'm sorry, not January, February, like I said, this terrible month, I am experiencing so much pain again. And we just moved up here from Long Island, so I need to find a new doctor. I'm starting this all over again. They do some ultrasounds, and there's a nice big fat mass on my left ovary. Like, oh goodness. Like, I remember the doctor on Long Island telling me that women with stage 4, on average, have surgeries every 2 to 5 years. Crap, he was right. So when I ask about it, they basically said, we're going to keep an eye on it, and then, right, surgery is like, but they're like, oh, we're not going there, da da da. I tell my husband, I'm so upset, I'll never forget, like, breaking down, crying at the island in the kitchen, and he said, can you call the doctor back and ask if it would be okay, if it would be safe to get pregnant with it in there? I'm like, really? I was so happy because he had me convinced that we were one and done, and I was really excited at the idea of having another child. And so I did just that, and the doctor said yes. And I think it was like a couple months later, we got pregnant with Porter. Amazing. So fortunate to have such a lovely pregnancy. Again, healthy. Just again, like, I don't want to say pregnancy is not easy by any means. And I felt so grateful to get pregnant twice. So grateful to have kids. But as far as relief from the disease, in my experience, it it's nice. It was nice to catch a break and grow human at the same time. So then we give birth to Porter in November of 2023, and I had to have a C-section because she did not want to turn. We did the inversion, everything, and it was during my C-section that I had to have an emergency supracervical hysterectomy. Later, the doctor explained that endometriosis being so vascular, whatever part of the surgery, I started bleeding out so bad. I lost like half my blood, and so in order, right, to save me, they got Porter out just fine. They removed my uterus, they left my ovaries and my cervix, and yes, one of the first real, like, or second, I guess, time cheating death. And I'm so glad to be alive, to have Porter and everybody healthy and okay. And later, I remember asking in my postpartum follow-up visit about the cyst. And he said, oh, I didn't see it in there. Now, I understand it wasn't his job, and also the disease, or I'm sorry, pregnancy quiets the disease, right? So rolling around, we've got like February, by the time, no, so I started experiencing a lot of pain, kind of like keeping in the back of my mind that cyst was still in there. But I know this sounds irresponsible and it might upset some of you listening, but I was like, I'm just gonna live my life pretending like I don't have endometriosis, because this is ruining my life. It's something that I hated, and I don't want to identify with it. I really had no idea there was a community out there. I didn't even have the time. not an excuse, just genuinely a reason for what was going in my life at the time, right? Becoming a mom, stay-at-home mom, then I have a second kid, I almost die. I mean, there's all this stuff going on. So all of 2024, first of all, is having, addressing having two kids, like I said, two under two, and then 2025, kind of taking more control and being like, okay, I'm going to wake up, go to the gym every morning. And I did, like, almost every single day of last year. But it was in the summer that I broke out in these insane hives that I never had my whole life. Hives deserve their own episode. Um, so I was hunting down all different specialists because I felt very dismissed. This has nothing to do with endometriosis. This is just the hives themselves, which I was later diagnosed with chronic hives. Very debilitating. Um, but the pain with, oh, so let me make it clear also with that partial hysterectomy, I did not bleed, but I still had my quote unquote time of the month periods where I had a cycle and the hormones, and so I still had what felt exactly like a heavy, painful period. All of the same symptoms, just no blood. And so then we come to, like I said, um, in the middle toward the end of 2025, where I had experience. I remember I was like in the kitchen, the girls woke up from their nap, I'm like cutting up strawberries, and I have the sharpest pain of my life, and it did not stop. It was a sharp stabbing pain that became a mix of that and dull that lasted for almost exactly 24 hours. And I remember calling my husband. I could not remain standing. I was waiting to see how long I could hold out before going to the ER. I thought it was possibly rupture or a torsion. Um, Luckily, like I was okay. It ended up, you know, settling down. But then I reach out to my OB and I'm just like, I can't take this anymore. So she recommends me to, or refers me to, a endo specialist um, just outside Albany, and I get on a wait list another few months and whatnot, finally to have my first appointment this January. There was some like moving around. I don't remember why exactly, but so we're in March right now, and in March. So it was just a couple months ago, and I have my multiple like pre-op appointment for that, and just going through the steps and like reviewing all of this. And I remember the PA being like, holy shit, like, oh my God. I'm like, have you seen cases like mine? And she's like, yes, but like only a handful. In that she said she thought it was odd, right? But then I explained it to her why I still had my cervix. And so we were discussing the plan for this surgery. She's like, well, we need to decide. I mean, one of the big things was that decision. I'm like, after some thought, discussion, and a lot of information given to me by the surgeon, bless him. Yes, that's what we went with, right? And then the next thing was the ovary. So I didn't even like, at that point, I'm just thinking, yeah, they'll remove as much of the disease as possible. Again, I think it's one of those like coping mechanisms to, for, at least for me, to not accept just how bad the endo is, how big the cyst was, how much it took over my body, because you can't see it, right? We don't really know. It's like this, like, if we could just have like a transparent thing to like look through, like a lava lamp. I'll go into that later just because I felt like my organs after being separated were like floating around like a lava lamp. But anyways, stay focused. So, I later, after just again a lot of information and discussion, decide beforehand to have both my ovaries taken out and my cervix and kind of like finish my hysterectomy. Um, and I remember in my pre-op with the surgeon, just like so confidently saying, oh, I believe like it's definitely like all of your cervix. I'll probably have to separate the bladder and the bowel, and I'm just like, whoa. Like I know it's probably bad, but like, man. And he was right. He knew what he was talking about. He is amazing. Shout out to you, Jonas. Um, but really, I am so grateful. I am heartbroken that it was as bad. If it was actually worse. And yes, so it was like my bowel was stuck to no, it was more so the large cyst all in all was stuck to everything was stuck to my cervix, ureters, bowel, rectum, bladder. I mean, my body really took a beating, and it's I mean that's just the surgery itself. Not even the aftermath. That was a disaster. Also, probably deserves its own episode. So, that's my story. I was diagnosed with endo when I was probably should have started with this. In 2020, and it was like literally just being discovered stage 4. I know that happens to a lot of women, unfortunately. And I just thought like after that surgery, kind of like my life moved forward. I didn't quite understand, and I feel like I still wasn't educated as much, minus that one surgeon on Long Island, just how it would affect my life moving forward in the future and what that looked like. Because I was getting pregnant, these OBs and doctors were kind of just being like, yeah, like it's fine, like just kind of putting it to the side. But it's the specialists that are like, hey, what's up? Like, this is what's going on. And I just wish that we had more of them because they know their shit. Um, I like to keep these episodes with myself kind of short, so I'm just gonna end it there. But I would like to just say to anyone listening that this is my story and it is different from yours and everyone else's. And a big reason why I was holding back for so long sharing it is because I don't want to scare anyone. I remember not wanting to talk about endometriosis at all for that very reason. Because if anyone finds out they have it, and again, they're the 4 stages, it's like even if you have stage 4, in my like worst case scenario, I mean maybe I'm not even the worst. Some women have bowel resections and have sepsis. I mean the disease, it's terrible, right? And that's why we're here. That's why I'm on here today. This is why Flare exists. So I can help you have your stories told. I just shared with you mine. Our stories are never ending, right? Um, but the hope is that by sharing them that we feel connected, heard, understood, seen, and less alone. Thank you so much for being here. Keep creating, keep healing. I am so grateful if you made it this far. Have a wonderful day. Talk soon.